tutorial of the color isolation process that we learned in class in case you need a refresher or you weren't here last class. So basically what we're doing for this project is we are taking photos that you already have. So this could be a picture that you took for a previous project, one that you had on your phone, any photo as long as it's yours. And it needs to have a pop of color. So like these yellow petals are perfect for what we're doing. What we're going to do is edit this in Photoshop. So this is our first Photoshop project. And we are going to make it so that the subject is still in color, but the background is switched to black and white. And the purpose of this project is just so that you learn some of the basic functions of Photoshop. So we don't plan to take any new photos for this project. We're just editing the old ones to learn about Photoshop. The first thing that you need to do, if you didn't start last class, you will need to make a folder for the project in your Photoshop folder. So if you look at the Photoshop folder in your sidebar, yours is probably empty, but you will make a new folder with the current date and then the words color isolation. So do that if you haven't already. That's where we're saving everything for this project. Then you need to go through your RAW imports and JPEG exports, these folders in your sidebar, and you need to find a photo that has a pop of color in it. Now, if you open up a RAW file, so if you're in your RAW imports and you open a file that ends in NEF, you are going to get this extra step where it says, it comes up with this screen that's not quite Photoshop and you can't close out of it, and people get very frustrated by this. There's an open button in the bottom corner, so please click the open button if that's the one you want to use, or click cancel if that's not the one you want to use. Double clicking works for RAW files, but for any photo that you are trying to open, you can right click on the photo. If you don't have right click, if it doesn't work on your mouse, then hold Control on the keyboard and click on the photo and say open with Adobe Photoshop, and that will load it. So that will work for either one, but keep in mind if you get that extra screen, you just need to click open in the bottom corner. Once you've chosen your photo, and I'm going to go ahead and use the one that I have open already, then we are going to save it as a Photoshop file. So we always want to start a Photoshop project by saving, and we need this file to be a very specific format. So at the top of your screen, please go to File, Save As, and that's the very top of the screen, not just the Photoshop window. File, Save As. Your window will probably look like this the first time that you save something. So if it does, you're just going to click on the little arrow right here, the one that's not blue. You will go to your Photoshop folder and find the color isolation that you made. You can rename the photo if you want, or you can leave it as the name it already had. And then you need to double check that your format is Photoshop. So the format is right down here. Make sure it's Photoshop, and then you can click Save. Okay, I've already saved this one, so I'm not going to, but you will click Save. As you make changes to this photo, you can press Command S to update your changes, and that way nothing gets lost if Photoshop were to crash, or if you need to come back and fix something after I've graded it and looked at your photos. So first step is saving. The next thing that we need to do is duplicate this image, and the goal here is to create 2 layers. So Photoshop works in layers. Instead of just editing one image, we can create multiple. We can hide certain parts of one photo, and they basically layer on top of each other like paper would. So if I have a black and white layer and a color layer, the one on top is the only one I can see unless I hide it or cut out part of it to show the layer underneath. So we want to make 2 layers. We will make the bottom layer black and white, leave the top layer in color, and then we will cut out the subject so that only the subject is in color and we can see through to the black and white background. So we're going to take this background layer right here, drag it to the bottom of the layers panel. You should see this little plus with a box around it, and drop it there. That will duplicate it, but you need to drag the layer, don't just click on that button. Now I have 2 identical layers. This top one will stay in color, the bottom one will become black and white, and then I will cut out the flower from this one and hide the rest of it. To make this bottom layer black and white, I need to unlock it because this little lock will prevent me from making any changes. So click on the lock. At the top of your screen, go to Image, Adjustments, and Desaturate is down here at the bottom. So again, that's Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. When I click on this, it does make the bottom layer black and white. We can see that over here, but I don't notice any changes right here. That is because the top layer always covers the bottom layer. So these eyeballs allow you to hide a layer. If I hide the top one, now I can see that the bottom layer is black and white. But if I bring the top layer back, it completely covers it. We are done with the bottom layer now. We are moving on to the top one. So make sure that you have the top layer selected. With the top layer selected, we will select our subject. So there's this newer button down here that says select subject. It basically uses AI to determine what your subject is. And if you click on it, it will think for a second and then it will outline it. It's not totally perfect, but that's pretty good. Sometimes it will be able to find it easily, sometimes it won't. So if that doesn't look good, you can hit deselect. If it does look good, keep it. If not, hit deselect. And our other option is going to be this tool over here, the Object Selection tool. This is the fourth tool in your toolbar on the left side. And if you don't see Object Selection when you hover over it, you can click and hold. There are three options here. There's Magic Wand, Quick Selection, Object Selection. I like Object better, so just click and hold and then choose Object. Now, the Object Selection tool, after you've used it for a minute, it will try to automatically determine what subject you want. So it'll kind of outline it in pink, and when you click on it, it should find your subject. But if you don't see the pink highlight, you also can click and drag, create a box over your subject, and then it will find it. So you want to get that outline all the way around. Okay. Once you have the outline with the flashing dotted lines, now we can make what's called a mask. The mask is basically like cutting out the subject and keeping only the part that's selected, but we hide the background. This is better than deleting the background because you can always go in and make changes. It's not permanent, it's just hiding it from view. The mask tool is down here at the bottom of the toolbar. If you hover over it, it says layer mask, and it looks like a rectangle with a circle in the middle. When I click on it, it cuts out my flower, keeps the selected part, and hides the rest of it. You'll notice that there's this little thing attached to your top layer. This is the mask, and it's showing you the white part is what you're seeing, the black part is what's hidden. So then we see through to the layer behind it. I will now go in and edit this, which it actually did a really good job with the selection here. I don't need to edit this particular photo, but let's say that it wasn't as perfect. Some of your photos may not turn out so perfect from the beginning. You can double click on this black and white part right here, and it will bring you into this select and mask mode. It might ask you to click on a button where you say enter, select, and mask. You might also notice, if this is your first time editing, that your photo looks like it's in color again. That's just the view that you have it set to. So if your photo's in full color, click on this little view icon right here and choose on layers. It will remember it the second time that you edit, so you only have to change that once. Over here on the left side, we have three brushes. We have the quick selection tool, the refine edge brush, and the brush tool. The quick selection tool I like to call a smart brush because what it does is it tries to understand the whole object that you're painting or that you're selecting. So it does a lot of the work for you, but sometimes it over selects. Up at the top, if you choose plus, that will add color to the image. If you choose the minus, it will take away color from the image. Okay, so plus will add color, minus will take it away. You also can change the size of the brush. I think it starts at 13 or something really small. So make it more proportionate to the area that you're painting. This is a good tool to use to save you some time, but if you find it over selecting, you can always press Command Z to undo or switch to the minus tool. The refine edge brush is good for hair, if you have a picture of an animal with fur or anything with wispy edges, but that's pretty much it. so I wouldn't use it other than for wispy edges. And the brush tool is basically just a regular paintbrush, so I have it on plus right now, so it'll bring in color, but wherever I paint it, it will paint exactly in that area, nothing more, nothing less. I'm going to undo that with Command Z. So if you noticed any mistakes in your selection or in your subject, you will just go through with these brushes. You will touch up the mistake. So let's say that that part didn't get selected. You'll touch up the mistake, get it all fixed. Make sure that you let go every once in a while when you're using this brush. And once you're happy with that, you will click OK in the bottom corner. Clicking OK will bring you back to the main view. And here, if everything looks good, all we need to do is save it. We're going to first press Command S to update the changes that I've already made. So Command S, you can see this blue bar flashed at the bottom. Actually saved pretty quickly. Sometimes it takes longer than that. That updates the Photoshop file that we made at the start of this. When that blue bar is done loading, then you can do the final save. We're going to go up to File, Save a Copy. It has to be Save a Copy because that's the only one that will allow us to use a JPEG format. File, Save a Copy. Put it in the same folder. You can rename it if you'd like. And then the format down here is what needs to change. This final copy must be a JPEG, otherwise it won't be able to go on the slideshow. So please make sure that you have a JPEG here, and then click Save. And I have already done this, so you shouldn't get this pop-up. And it will save it for you. You might have to click OK. You may get a pop-up for that as well. Then if I look in my Photoshop folder, color isolation, I have 2 versions of every photo that I've edited. So this one that I'm working on currently, the first photo is a PSD file. Okay, that is a Photoshop file. That means that I could open this up and continue working on it at any point, or if I made a mistake, I can fix it without starting over. This one, the copy.jpg file, that is my final copy that can go on the slideshow. So you should end up with 2 copies of every photo that you edit. The goal for this project is to have 10 final copies like this on the slideshow. Pick any subject. If you run out of photos, you can upload some from your phone. But just make sure that it's something with a pop of color and that you are editing neatly and using the steps that I showed you. Okay, if you have any questions, if I'm around, if I'm there that day, ask me and I'm happy to help you. If I'm not there, please ask some of the other students around you. I'm sure somebody knows how to do it and they can help you out. So use each other as a resource. All right, that is all for today.